Hello, and welcome once again to the Secrets of the High Demand Coach. And I am here with what you would call a coach in the traditional sense of the word, but someone who is massively instrumental in helping organizations and founders grow and scale their organizations. And that is Mr. Stefan Debois. He's the founder and CEO of Pointerpro, which is an assessment software platform that helps professional services companies to automate their advisory processes. I can't wait to dig into that. Stefan is passionate about the use of technology to build professional relationships with people at scale. Now, before founding Pointerpro, Stefan worked for 15 years in several consulting companies as a consultant, as a project manager, and as an account manager, contributing to Entrepreneur, Capterra, CrazyEgg, a bunch of other names you would recognize and know today, and mainly in the areas of entrepreneurship and digital marketing. So there's so much here to unpack. But before we get to all of that, Stefan, first I want to say welcome. Thanks for being on the show. And why don't you kick us off with your story? Tell us a little bit about how you got into the place where you're at now, how before you launched Pointerpro, and tell us a little bit about that founding journey.
Yeah, sure, Scott, and thank you for having me, by the way. So I graduated as an engineer, and then immediately afterwards, I started working in consulting because I thought like consulting was a nice way to start your professional career. You get in touch with a lot of different things. So when I stayed like about 15 years in consulting. And what I've seen there is that we worked like a lot with like enterprise software and in large companies. So I worked like for PricewaterhouseCoopers as a consultant and for a computer science corporation afterwards. So we had this large scale project. And what I've seen is that the consulting companies themselves were decently automated when it comes to the back office processes. But when it comes to actual giving advice to customers, which is the core business, of course, of a consulting company, then there was still a lot of manual work and a lot of things that were repeated and like not really efficient. Yeah. So then, as an engineer, I always wanted to start my own company to create something myself. And then in 2012, I created Pointerpro based on that experience, so to say.
Fantastic. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about Pointerpro, what it is you do, and really dial in on what would you say is the most important work or the most important value that you provide for your clients?
Yeah, Pointerpro is as you said, like an assessment software with assessments that generates personalized advice reports. Of course, that's a tool. I mean, you have an assessment like a questionnaire, and then based on the answers to the questions, people that take the assessment get a personalized advice report. So that's all very nice. But the higher level of objective, of course, for our clients, which are mostly in professional services and also sometimes in coaching, is of course to automate their advisory process and thereby being able to scale. To scale their business without scaling their headcount, basically, or without scaling their headcount as fast. Yeah, because when I was in consulting, of course, when we want to increase revenue, we always had to increase or like to recruit new people, and all professional service companies are looking for ways to achieve that nonlinear growth. So meaning that the growth is faster than the growth of your headcount. And digitization, of course, one of the elements that can be used for that. And our tool is only one piece of the puzzle, but we think it's an important piece. It automates the ask, assess, advise process. So we call it the 3A process: ask, assess, advise. And that's a core process that every consultant or professional services company has to do.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you've dialed in on professional services, and from your background, it makes sense. But one of the things that I found particularly in professional services is it's relatively easy to get started, right? There are hundreds, if not, there are thousands of one-off consultants or coaches. It's very easy to hang your shingle. It's relatively easy. I wouldn't say that's easy, but it's relatively easy to build a thriving consultancy on your own. Very, very difficult to scale professional services, right? And and where all, you kind of make up for all the ease and being able to get started, low barrier of entry, not a huge capital cost. You got to put yourself out there, and there's a kind of a mental, emotional, just momentum side of things. But once you get beyond that point, folks are just consistently running into this barrier of, I'm trading my time for money, right? Which is kind of that first scale point. And then even once they get a few people working with them, it's that problem that you're talking about. It's like we're swapping dollars for time, and that doesn't scale, right? You can marginally increase it. You can boost your rates a little bit, and for some, that's a really big deal, but there's a diminished return on that. And as you start adding headcount, it's not only that it's non-linear, it starts dipping the other way, because you got to have people that manage them. You have to have all kinds of other investment. So, with that being the backdrop, how have you seen, I'd like to look at this in a couple of different contexts. How have you seen, and maybe this isn't your world, but do you work with solopreneurs that are using your Pointerpro system to kind of scale their own practice, or are you primarily working with larger organizations?
Yeah, it's primarily with larger organizations, or like larger organizations. Not, I mean, we have the big ones like Deloitte and Capgemini, but we prefer to focus on the mid-size. But this is not a solo entrepreneur. Solo is probably a bit too small. But it's from 10 to 1,000, which is still a broad range, of course, of employees. But we see that because you're talking about the evolution of the consultant, we see that before digitizing, you have to fix a couple of other things. Yeah, like you said, we see it as 3 steps. Yeah? The first step is to specialize in a number of service offerings, in one or more service offerings, but really choose for. Don't try to do everything for everybody. Just specialize in a couple of service offerings. Yeah, and it can be a one man or woman company or consulting company for with more people. But specialization, that's the first step. Then the second step is move from time material to fixed outcome or fixed price. For each of these service offerings, you could say, okay, you trade your time for money, indeed. But then, as you have done a couple of projects, you should be aware about the deliverables that are typically expected from a customer, the work that is to be done for this to make these deliverables, and then go to the next customer or prospect and see, okay, this is the set of deliverables, and this is the price that you're going to pay for it.
Yeah,
that's the second step. So fixed outcome, and then the third step, even before digitization, is to create a model, like a maturity model, to say or to be able to determine the client's performance level in each of your service offerings. Say that cybersecurity, for example, that you're a cybersecurity consultant, then you need to, when you go into a new prospect or a new client, then you need to be able to assess where he is, like is it like absolutely a novice in cybersecurity, or is it already quite advanced? And depending on that, you're going to give different advice. You should have a model, and not digitized, just put it on paper or in a PowerPoint. And that's the third step. And then afterwards, the fourth step, you can start to digitize with a tool like ours or another tool. Yeah, but that's what we advise to our prospects and customers.
And that is fantastic advice. I want to just kind of work back through that real quickly, because one of the challenges I see, especially in the digital age, if you will, is folks jumping straight to technology, right? When they haven't done the work of figuring it out in the first place. And I think it was Jim Collins who said technology is an accelerator, right? It doesn't really transform as much as it accelerates in whatever direction you're heading. And so if you're doing everything for everyone and you try to automate that, one, it's very difficult to automate, and two, you're just going to automate chaos, right? It's going to make you get into trouble faster, basically. So I love, and it's rare that you hear this from someone who offers a digital solution saying, hey, there's actually steps that need to take place ahead of time. And where, in our world and the language that our audience would recognize, what we're talking about is I see folks who try to over rely on technology to get out of the very first stage, early struggle, right? They're trying to figure it out using technology. And in some tech companies, that's appropriate, but professional services, that's rarely the case. It's rarely that a piece of software doing whatever kind of automation is going to get you out of that early struggle stage, because you just don't know enough about what you're doing to even automate it yet. You don't have something that's working, and there's no piece of software that's going to overcome a lack of understanding for your
even in other cases or situations, we always say like the cost of software, like is the license price of the software is only a small part of the actual cost, because the cost of changing people's behavior, like before the software, they have to work like method A, and then after the software, it's method B, because it's with the software. It's maybe a more efficient method, but still you have to move them from method A to method B, and that's the most important cost.
It's so true. It's so true. So you've got to get out, it's a little bit of blood, sweat, and hard work, like you've got to you got to grind it out. You have to, like you're saying, you've got to get to the point where you can specialize, where you know what your expertise is, before you're really going to be able to start to even think about automating things. Now, from there, I love this idea of the fixed outcome, especially for professional services, because you walk in and you're like, that's $400 for an hour of work, here in the US, we're like, that's crazy. But if you say, hey, it's $400 and I'll solve this problem, it's a completely different conversation. And those two things together, I found are what really get folks out of that, what we call early struggle, right? That just existential fight for survival. Fun is where we start really dialing those things in. And that third step that you had, like creating a model, measuring results, following through, assessing what's going on, and starting to do that, and it works really, really well. But then, that's where you can get, especially if you put your effort in the right places, you can get up to 10, 15, 20, 30 employees, not all of them coaches, consultants, or whatever the practices that you do. Some of them support staff, some of them, will vary, but you can get there. But then where you guys come in and where we start to hit that next threshold is you just can't you can't grunt your way through it anymore. It's not blood, sweat, and hard work anymore, right? You can keep working as hard as you want, but again, you get those diminished returns. So how do you know where that crossover is? Like if someone's thinking about, implementing a technology solution like yours, maybe they've done the 3 steps. How do they know when those 3 steps aren't enough anymore?
Yeah, when you have the model and you when you have a new conversation with like with a prospect, and you use that model, maybe it's just on PowerPoint or just documented elsewhere, and it appeals to that prospect, and then the next prospect again, and then again and again, then the evaluation of the model will then be like manually, or what we often see, like in terms of, it will not be completely manually, but people they implement it via Duct-Tape Digitization, we call it. Like we often see the questions that are asked and the information collected to feed the model, that is then done maybe in Google Forms, and then it's exported to Excel, and then some calculations are made, and then it's in a Word template, which then saved into PDF and then given to the customer. But you see that when it's when there are more, when your company starts to grow, there are more transactions, more new prospects, and that process needs to scale. Then it's time to go to more professional tool. So we have seen people that have made like Excel sheets with like 35 tabs and with all questions and macros and everything. Really sophisticated model, because you have 2 types of model. You have the descriptive model and the prescriptive model. So the descriptive model is only going like a cybersecurity assessment, you're a level 2 out of 5, and the benchmark is, for example, 3. That's just measuring. And prescriptive, sorry, is then you give also advice. So you give you're on level 2, but in order to go to level 3, you have to do this and this and this. And this advice is, of course, linked to the service offerings you can provide. So when you already have this and you have automated it with suboptimal tools, and you have like the number of transactions increases, that's the ideal moment to start to do one step further to look at the tool like ours.
Got it. So just kind of walking back through this, we've got someone who's, a team who's specialized, they've got fixed outcomes, they've changed their pricing model, it's working well, they've got a model that's working. They've got the duct tape digitization. I love that duct tape digitization. No, I can't even say it. What do they tend to try at that point before they come to you guys? And how does that go?
They try to go with this duct tape or with this suboptimal tooling to their customers, and then you see a number of pains that arise. Like the first pain is like too much manual work. They feel that they have to do like lots of repetitive work, and they can spend their time better, because all over they have to do the same, collecting the same information, like writing the same type of reports. That's one thing. And then there are some secondary pains or benefits if you look at it from the tools perspective. So, for example, the consultants when consultants leave the company, that the expertise also leaves the company. Of course, when you have put the expertise like partially in a digital tool, then you solve that problem partially, because you will never put all the expertise in the tool, of course.
Right.
But still, also consultants, like in the context of the war for talent, which is something we all experience, especially in professional services. Yeah, the consultants will be able to do more strategic work, and not just the data collection and the initial as-is diagnostic phase, which is always the same. If that is automated, they will be focusing on more strategic work with clients. That's also an advantage. These are kind of the things that we see. Another one is the time to business impact for the customer. What we call like the first conversation with the consultant and the business results, let's say. The analysis phase, the as is phase, when I was a consultant, sometimes it took 2-3 months, but just to document as is process, how they work now. There's zero value for the customer, basically, because they just have to repeat, like in workshops. I've been there, and the consultant writes everything down, and then afterwards they can start to do recommendations. But that, if you automate like that data collection, this initial advice, then the time to business impact is much shorter, which is an additional advantage.
Right, which is basically the professional equivalent of inventory turns, right? Of being able to roll through, and you start seeing some of the gains that inventory-driven organizations can start to make in a professional services environment, which is fascinating. All right,
work in progress, we called it.
Yes,
that's work in progress is the same as inventory in a manufacturing company, and you have to try to minimize it in a service company.
Fantastic. It's brilliant, actually. All right. So here's the moment I've been waiting for. I'm excited to ask you this. And that is one question. What is the biggest secret that you wish wasn't a secret? What's that one thing that you wish everybody listening today knew?
I think in the beginning, when I started my company, a lot of people said, start by capitalizing on your network, the people that you know. And actually, that is, it's good. It's still good advice. I would not advise not to do it. But the secret, or the less common advice, probably to quickly go beyond your network also, because otherwise, if you're stuck in your network, also as professional service and especially also as software vendor, it's not that the network will give you the introductions. You will still have to prove that you have a good product or a good service, because it's not like because people know you that they're going to be immediately become clients or if they don't like your product or your service. So it's good. But then you, as soon as possible, you have to use your network, like these initial clients, to go to beyond your network. And the first really satisfying moment that you see as a win or as an entrepreneur, I think, is when someone not from your network is becoming a client. Because like even for us, like we are based in Belgium, in Europe, if someone from Australia or the US becomes a client without knowing me, just by looking at our product, at our website and so on, that is really the first great moment and that is a result of going beyond your network. So that would be something that I would advise.
That is excellent advice. And it really is. It's a special moment. I've had a chance at several companies now to experience that. And yeah, it's just like, we may have done this, like we actually may be onto something. These people aren't just buying because they like us. So,
yeah.
All right. Excellent. So last question for you here, and then I'd love to hear how folks can get connected with you. But what would you say is the next phase of growth for Pointerpro and for you as a leader? And what do you think are the challenges you're going to have to overcome to get there?
Yeah, for Pointerpro, we, as from customer acquisition, we rely quite heavily on inbound marketing, like Google search. It's both paid search and organic search, also some other acquisition channels. But now they're like plateauing. So they're we spend like, it's not a secret, we spend about 20,000 US dollar or euros, it's almost the same, to Google Ads per month. And if I would double that amount, even or triple, I would not have like twice or 3 times the number of leads. Even far from there, I think. So it's working. It's good unit economics, but not scalable. So we need to go for other channels to scale our business. So these are twofold. Like the first is sell more at existing customers, and the second is like the top of funnel thought leadership, which means that people get to know us before they need our product. It's easier said than done.
Yes.
But then you have content marketing, thought leadership, and everything which is beyond the product, like I'm saying here, like professionalization of digital or the digitization of professional services. Sorry. And other things that you can do without our product to advise people about that, and to spread the word and also good content. And then at the moment that they will need a product like ours, they will think about us. So, and as a leader, I think I am, as a ex-consultant who has gone through the old way of consulting, and now I'm evangelizing the new way of consulting. I need to be the face behind that, and personally bring the word to the world, so to say.
Yeah. That's so good. That's so good. I'd love to hear how, someone's listening to this and like, we've done these steps. We've got a model that's working, but we're just tripping over ourselves, doing the same thing over and over and over again. How can they find more about you and Pointerpro?
Yeah, they can go to the website, like pointerpro.com. There is, of course, you can look at the tool, everything that it can do or cannot do. And then there's also like useful blogs and case studies. And if you want to connect with me personally, and the network or the social network where I'm most active on is LinkedIn, so you can just connect to me, and I will be happy to share like experiences and help out if possible.
I love it. Well, Stefan, fascinating conversation. Thanks so much for coming on. I know it was so helpful for so many people. For everyone listening, I just want to say thank you for being here with us. Your time and attention mean the absolute world to us. And I can't wait to see you next time. Take care.